Say that again.
I'm so sad that I understood.
Language is a weird thing, right? Obviously, the words that people are using nowadays aren't the same as the words that people in my generation have used, the slang that we used, the references that I use in my lectures or what I talk about with my friends. These things kind of differ from y'all's generation, right? What did this sentence mean? This is cap.
That's a lie.
That's a lie, right? Or like, I can't believe this is whatever. You need to goon inside. What did that mean in the context of the video?
Wait, out of context?
No, in the context of the, yeah, what was the guy saying? What did he mean? What did the father mean? You need to goon inside.
Like go inside.
Right, exactly. Language is mysterious in a number of ways. Y'all could pretty much follow the video, right? Because you've heard these words used in various contexts. You could kind of follow what was happening within the context of the video game, what the characters were trying to say. But there are a lot of things that, even though language is so close to us and we take it for granted, deep questions about it that we don't often reflect on. What do we use to define words? For example, how would you define chair?
An item we use to sit down.
An item that you use to sit down. How would you define a mug?
An item you can drink out of.
Sure. Something that holds liquids and you can drink out of, right? Notice what we're doing when we're talking about the definitions of words, what words mean. We use words to define words. If you look in the dictionary, what are you going to see? Well, a bunch of words that are supposed to tell you what a word means, right? But if I said to you, for example, that's cap. If I gave you a definition of the two words that's and cap, would that completely capture the meaning of that phrase? If I just gave you the definitions. See Annabelle shaking her head no. Why?
Because it's like a different context when the two are put together.
Sure. Yeah, what does meaning depend on? Well, it depends on the definitions of words, right? You know the definitions of words, at least informally. But it also depends on context. It depends on intention and circumstances and all these different things. We know what words mean, but that meaning can vary a little bit, right? And it is not completely captured just by the definitions of words. So for the first half of class today, I'd like to just talk about language a little bit, have something of a discussion. We use words to define other words, and around we go. But one of the points that Nagel wants to make in this chapter is that a word's meaning is not completely captured by its definition. It can't be, because otherwise it would be circular. So where do the meanings of words come from? Where does language come from? How does language develop? How is language related to our daily lives and our society? These are some of the questions that we're going to be considering today. Now, what's another interesting thing about words? Well, if I use the word table in a sentence, tables are hard. Tables are hard and smooth. Am I referring just to this table that's right in front of me?
I mean, you're generalizing it. You're saying table instead of this table.
Right. Maybe you could say we kind of learn the definitions of words by interacting with particular things. But another interesting thing about words is that they seem to apply universally to all instances of that thing. If you're talking about a dog, the dog ran out of the dog park. You might be intending to talk about a particular dog, relaying an experience that you had. But that word dog is transferable to a bunch of different other contexts, right? And people know what you mean when you use that word. So these words that we use seem to apply to classes of things or categories of things. If I use the word desk, it would apply to this, it would apply to that, it would apply to that, right? It would apply to the desks in the next room. This is another mysterious thing about language. How is this possible? Well, Nagel entertains a response to how a word can seemingly apply to classes of things. The set of dogs, the set of hoodies, the set of backpacks, right? And what's the response that he entertains? Well, maybe there's some idea or concept behind the word to which the word refers. Maybe it's referring to a kind of thought you're having in your head when you're using that word. That's another particular possible response. This is an intuitive response, right? Well, what are words referring to? Maybe they're referring to this idea that we all have in our minds, or some concept that we all share, or some thought that we all share when we use that word or invoke that word. But this raises a few problems. If we're going to say, when we use the word dog, for instance, that it refers to a thought inside our heads, well, we all have different thoughts, right? Is your thought of a dog the same thought that I have when I think of a dog? How about a concept? Is your concept of dog the same concept that I have? Probably not. I mean, what the heck is this thing behind the word? What gives a word its meaning? And another question. Y'all can understand what I'm saying right now, right? You're following along with the lecture. You're grasping the meaning that I'm trying to relay to you. How is it that random mouth sounds are able to carry meaning to you? I'm just making movements with my mouth, right? And I'm exhaling air. And there are certain things happening with my vocal cords. All physical stuff. Muscular stuff. How is it that doing that can relay information to you? How can you even understand what I'm saying? Because we all say words a little bit differently, right? The muscles that your mouth and tongue are making and your vocal cords are not going to be exactly the same as what I'm doing when I say the same word that you do, right? So there's something slightly different going on with all of us, but yet somehow we know that when we use a particular word, it's transferable to other contexts and we grasp the meaning and we know what each other are talking about. I mean, if you really think about this, it's very strange. Maybe it hasn't been strange to you up until this point because we take language for granted and we're so enmeshed in it. But these are some deep, tough questions. Nagel says, the mystery of meaning is that it doesn't seem to be located anywhere. What I'm saying to you right now is the meaning inside your head. Is the meaning in the air around us? Where is the meaning that we grasp when we say words and when we communicate? It doesn't seem to be located anywhere. Not in the word, not in the mind, not in a separate concept or idea hovering between the word, the mind, and the things we're talking about. And yet, we use language all the time. And it enables us to think complicated thoughts which span great reaches of time and space. Maybe we aren't able to locate where the meaning of a word is or how it can apply universally, how and why these strange sounds that I'm making you're able to understand and grasp. But what we do know is that language is a social phenomenon. It seems to have certain rules. We use it socially. We learn it socially. Right? How did you learn the English language? Interactions and experiences with your parents. Right? Maybe you pointed at something, you dog, and they're like, no, that's not a dog. That's a desk. You know? We know it's a social thing. It doesn't seem that any of us individually make up the meanings or definitions of words. Right? We're already kind of born into a world in which there's a definition of this word, there's a definition of this word, and you didn't come up with it, I didn't come up with it. The president doesn't determine, right, what a word means or how it's defined. This is a collective kind of social enterprise. So just for a little while, because honestly the stuff in the second chapter for today is a lot more interesting, I'd like to talk about this. What words mean seem to be socially shared and used. If you hadn't grown up in this society, would you know what somebody means when they say no cap? You think kids in China are saying that? Probably not, right? They have their own words and slang that they use. So I'd like to just get some questions on the table. Where does language come from? How does it arise? Are there quote-unquote proper or correct definitions of words? Does language precede thought? Do you need language in order to think about things? Or is your thought prior to the language that you've learned? Is thought dependent on language or not? What is their relationship? And finally, what is meaning and where does that come from? Let's start off with an easier question. What's the word that refers to this?
Marker.
Marker? Sure. Is the definition or meaning of marker arbitrary and random? What do you think? Take 30 seconds. Chat with the people around you. Think kind of about this question. Are there objectively proper or correct definitions of words? Proper or correct meanings of words? Take a second, 30 seconds, talk to the people around you. What do you think? What do you guys think? We use marker to or the word marker to refer to this. Is that random and arbitrary?
Random?
Yeah.
It's just like
It's just a random word.
It's one view?
I think that
What do you think?
I think it's a marker because like art stuff.
Because it marks stuff? Okay, maybe the meaning or definition is tied to its use? That could be. I can't use the word dog, though, to refer to this, right? If this was on the board and I wanted you to grab it for me, could I say, could you get me the dog? You wouldn't know what I mean. Right. Isn't that weird? We kind of all have these ideas about what these words mean, similar ideas. But it seems like the words can't be used in any way that we want, right? That's kind of bizarre. At least to me, I don't know. Maybe not to you. Okay. What did y'all say in your groups? Yeah.
I think it is and it isn't because it's founded in like the words we use to make up our language, that we use like simple words to define certain actions, then we start building on that until like the words we use to define certain objects sort of represent like the prefixes that we have for that action. Like you mark something with a marker, assign it, its actions and the things that determine its name.
This is something that we chatted about too. Something you are kind of implying is that maybe the names that we give things or the words that we use are tied to their use or function. Right? This is a marker. It marks things. Maybe. All right, what did the rest of y'all say? Yeah?
I said brindle.
That is a way back reference. Say more.
So it's, for those of you who don't know, it's a book about a pen. And the social collective all decides that we don't want to call it a pen anymore, we want to call it a friendly. And that just goes to show that if the entire world decided to say, oh, it's no longer called a marker, it's called something else, then you kind of have to go along. If it's not, the future was kind of forced into calling it a friendly.
How were they forced?
I think the teacher decided that they wouldn't
Ah, okay. So, language seems to follow certain rules. Right? The rule in that community ended up being this thing, that we're referring to. This thing right here. It's no longer called a pen. If you call it a pen, you're breaking some kind of informal rule, right? If I put this on the desk up here, and I asked you, could you grab the dog for me? How does that make you feel? What does that make you think? Could you grab the dog for me?
Did I hear you correctly?
Am I using the word right? Would you know what I mean? No, because we don't use the word dog to refer to this thing, right? We use pen or fountain pen, whatever it is. So, okay, language seems to follow rules. Again, it's social. We use language amongst each other. We use it to communicate. No single one of us seems to have the potential to change the definition of a word on a whim, right? Or change its meaning. Where do you think language came from? Was it given to us by God, for instance? Or aliens? Were we gifted with language thousands of years ago by some higher power? That's one theory, right? What do you think?
Oh, I was going to say it was a need for identifiers. For instance, one man can't defeat a mammoth, but many can. But how can many people defeat a mammoth? If everyone knows each other's names and commands each other to do certain actions, then together they're more powerful. For instance, if everyone believes in a solid definition of a spear, and everyone can say, Tom, throw your spear now, then it's much more organized than just a bunch of people doing things that I don't understand.
Yeah. Maybe you think, part of this whole language business is that it arose out of use or need or convenience in a community. People found out that by attaching certain regular sounds and using them to refer to certain things, actions, objects, whatever, they could get a lot more done. So it wasn't just gifted to us from God or aliens or something. Do you think it developed over time? Okay. It seems like the meanings and definitions of words undergo changes. Take the word virus, for instance. What did it mean prior to 1940? Or whenever the word was invented and before computers were invented? Yeah, some kind of disease, right? I don't know if they knew it was kind of like an organism back then. But now the word virus can refer to different things, right? Something on your computer or something in your body. You can use it in a simile or a metaphor, right? And when you do that, it's like part of the meaning of the word is carried in to the new context and what you're trying to say. So it's social. It seems to develop over time. Is there an objective, proper definition, though, to words? What do you think? Objectively true definition. If I called this a floopy-loo, am I making some kind of critical, objective error? What do you think? Yeah?
I think the proper, correct use of words is only as objective as what we agree on, but it's arbitrary in that we could agree on any set of sounds to define it. but it's only proper if we all define it by that same name, by that same word. Because if not, it doesn't serve as like a shared language.
Okay, so something like, look, maybe the reason why we have the definitions and meanings of these different words is that, you know, it's subject to some kind of collective enterprise, like collective agreement or disagreement. If we all decided to start calling this a floopy-loo, everybody in the United States, then what word would we use when we talked about this thing? Yeah, would the definition in Merriam-Webster change? Eventually, right? How about this meaning thing? What the heck is meaning? Any ideas? This is a tough question, right? Where does the meaning of a word come from? The kind of picture that y'all have been sort of drawing with your responses is, it seems to be something that develops over time. It's socially constructed. It's kind of subject to like social norms and agreement and disagreement. How about the meanings of words? Subject maybe to the context, like the meaning will change. Like if you say to your friend, that's cap, you know, when you're hanging out at the mall, that's a different meaning you might think than when your, you know, mom is really getting on your case and she's accusing you of something that you didn't do. And angrily you yell back, that's cap. Although it has a similar meaning, right? Is there an objective meaning to words? Or is the meaning of words kind of subjective, socially constructed, changes? Yeah, Angel.
I think it's dependent on the word because there's only so much subjectivity to if someone says chair. Like the subjectivity might come from what kind of chair or like what shape, but if someone starts talking about the meaning of the word love, people are going to give a lot of different responses to describe it, even though everyone would generally like recognize it as the same thing. So it's like a lot of different words could be varying levels of subjective. It's usually based on like the utility of them, if it's just a name or if it's a concept.
Okay, so yeah, going back to the kind of utility thing, right? Maybe meaning is tied to what words can do for us. Any other ideas? Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Emotions.
Emotions? Yeah, maybe there's like an emotional charge and like a connotation to the words that we
You could
use.
say chair, or you could yell it out. And that could be like two different meanings.
Yeah, the emotion that you use when you communicate seems to infuse it with a certain kind of meaning, right? How about your intention? Does your intention infuse your words with a certain kind of meaning? Take this sentence. He remains hidden in the hearts of the young. What does this sentence mean? Is it saying that whoever he is, the young don't know about him? Because he's hidden in their hearts. Or does it mean, no, this guy only hangs out in the hearts of the young'uns, nowhere else? Not out in the world. Maybe our intentions have something to do with the meanings of the words we use. What are you trying to say? These are all very difficult questions. There's a whole field dedicated to this philosophy of language. There have been philosophers who have tried to develop a perfect language, who thought that all of these philosophical problems that we have are just consequences of our imperfect language. If we could get a perfect language, all philosophical problems would disappear. People have been thinking and working on this for a very long time. I don't have many answers to give you, but I would encourage you to think and talk about this stuff with your friends. Because we take this thing for granted, we use it every day, but really, how much do we know about it? Apply those critical thinking skills. Okay, does anybody want to say anything more about this? I'd like to move on to the actually interesting topic for today. Oh, everybody's just tired. I get it. Okay. Let's transition. Talk amongst your groups. Try to answer the following question. What is free will? If I say you have free will, what does that mean? All right, go ahead.
Essentially said that we don't have free will, you never have free will. Because of your experience that will always lead to this. That's the way you
What do you have to say? I like to look at it from Neil deGrasse stated that the world, I think he's the world will end. And not means that it's all that fewer and far more. As things dissolve, slowly degrade. The world, the entire universe is expanding to just expanding apart. Dispersing radiation,
What do you think, Matthew? What's free will?
Free will. Alright. So free will is the ability to do anything mentally, but without any. You're still restricted physically, obviously.
Okay, like you can't fly.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, okay. So, maybe being able to do what you want?
Yeah, basically.
Something like that?
Yeah, you always have a choice in something, and so free will lets you make a choice on basically anything.
Okay, so you think free will exists? We have free will.
We have free will.
Okay. All right, keep thinking about that. We're going to talk about that. Okay. What do y'all think? What is free will? If I say, Sawyer, you have free will, what do I mean?
You're gonna pick me. I was thinking like free is in freedom, will is in willpower. So the freedom to do anything within your willpower.
Okay. So it's like, is it like a power or ability?
It's basically saying that there's no, rather than consequence, there's nothing that's stopping you from doing what you wish. Wish is being an open statement.
Right. Like maybe I wish to fly. Would you say I don't have free will if I can't fly?
Get on the plane.
Yeah, I could do it like artificially or something, right? If I really wish to flap my arms really fast and start hovering in the air, do I need to be able to do that to have free will? No? Okay. What is free will? Keep talking about it. What do you think? Doesn't seem to be something that allows us to do whatever we want.
But it allows us to do anything in our power.
Anything in our power. Okay. What do the rest of y'all think? Anything missing from this? I whip out my Glock and I hold it to your head and I'm like, you're going to take notes today. Do you have free will to not take notes?
Yeah.
You could just die, right? That's true. Do we use the phrase free will, though, when we talk about people being coerced or forced into doing things? What do you think? Let's say I kidnap your family with that clock. And I'm like, you're going to study and get an A in my class, or else your little brother's going to get it. Are you free?
I mean, technically you're still free.
Okay, technically, but you're like, look, Professor Gunnar, what are you doing? Like, that thing's not even loaded, right? Why? What? I'm not free. I'm being coerced here or something. Maybe there's an element to it, like when we use this word, we're implying that there's no coercion. Maybe. Any other ideas? Why are we talking about this? Well, it's related, of course, to not only the chapters that we've looked at so far, minds, the nature of reality, but it's also related to the chapters we're going to get into next, morality and justice. I think a lot of us have this intuition that, again, if I'm holding that Glock to your head and I'm like, punch this little girl in the face or else, and you do, if I said to you, you just did a terrible thing, you're a bad person, I'm going to blame and lock you up for that. Would that be fair? I see some shaking of heads. Why not? Why wouldn't it be fair for me to lock you up for not punching the little girl after I hold a gun to your head and I threaten you? What do you need, you might think, to be morally responsible for your actions? Maybe some sort of control?
Moral code?
Maybe a code, yeah. That's a part of it. Maybe the ability to make a genuine choice. Like there's actual possibilities in front of you that you can choose between. When we talk about what's right and wrong, morality, when we talk about ethics, when we talk about the legal system, how we praise and blame some people, how we punish and reward some people, all of these are connected to free will. So this kind of abstract metaphysical topic is related to how and why you judge others, what we're doing in society at large, when we have, cases and sentencings and all these different things. So this is an important question. To help foreground our discussion, of this topic, I'd like to get a few definitions on the board. Definitions from your reading for today. Well, one of the things that Nagel talked about was determinism. I'm going to quote Galen Strawson on this, though. What is determinism? Well, it's a view about reality. It's the view that everything that happens in the universe is necessitated by what has already gone before. In such a way that nothing can happen otherwise than the way it does. Think of a line of dominoes. That's the kind of idea that determinism is trying to get at. If the universe is determined, then what's happening right now is a result of what happened a moment ago, is a result of what happened a moment ago, is a result of what the conditions were right before that and what was going on. And you can trace this all the way back to the beginning of the universe, the initial conditions of the Big Bang. Whatever those initial conditions were, that is why things are the way they are today and what's happening today. This would be like a scientific, deterministic explanation of why you're in this classroom, how you got here, what you're doing, how you're feeling, all these different things. This is related to the free will debate because, well, if you think the universe is deterministic like that everything in the universe operates according to laws, natural laws, you might not think anybody has free will. After all, we're just playing out whatever biochemical reactions are going on in our brains. We don't really have control over what's going on. We don't really have a choice. Yeah, Annabelle.
So would you say that determinism is like an inflated view on like the butterfly effect, how everything's connected?
Yeah, the butterfly effect, as far as I can tell, is more about like consequences are unpredictable when you look over long spans of time. But there's an idea in there that's related to determinism, right? What happened way back when is the reason why things are the way they are now. Yeah. So they're related. Free will is a messy topic. People disagree on definitions. I'm just going to put one down. You don't have to accept this. Having the ability to choose what one thinks and does. You can actually choose. You have a choice. Well, unsurprisingly, philosophers have been thinking about this for a very long time. They've come up with a bunch of different views on whether they think free will exists, whether or not free will is compatible with determinism. There's some who think, yeah, even if this is true, we can have free will. There's some who think, no, if this is true, nobody has free will. And there are some who think, it doesn't matter how the universe is like, there never was the possibility for free will, whether the universe is deterministic or indeterministic. Incompatibilism is one position on this free will debate. I'm going abbreviate it, FWD. What do you think incompatibilism says? If you had to guess, what word do you see in there? What word do you see in there? Incompatible. Is that what you were going to say too? Yeah. It's the view that free will and determinism are incompatible. If the universe is deterministic, then we don't have free will. That's what the incompatibilists would think. On the other hand, if it's true that we have free will, determinism must be false. Our universe is not determined like that. A subtype of this view we're going to call hard determinism. I'm not going to keep writing the view that. I'm just going to do that. The hard determinist says determinism is true. So there's no free will. Similarly, on the other side in the incompatibilist camp, we have libertarianism. This takes the opposite stance. Determinism is false. We all actually have free will. Now, those are the general incompatibilist positions. There are a lot of philosophers who think, no, determinism and free will could both exist. These would be the compatibilists. There's nothing incompatible about determinism and free will. You can have both. And in fact, we do have both. Seems like our universe is deterministic, but we still have free will. Finally, we have pessimism, which is what Strawson calls it, or what my undergraduate advisor called no free will either wayism. It's the view that free will is impossible, regardless of whether determinism is true or false. So if we wanted to represent this imagistically, there's a handy little image that we can draw, a little picture. You're trying to think about whether determinism is true or false. If you think it's true, and you think we have free will is true, you're a compatibilist. On the other hand, if you think determinism is false, this whole bubble is incompatibilism. If you think determinism is false, that might lead you to think we actually do have free will. You're a libertarian, a metaphysical libertarian. On the other hand, if you think determinism is true and we don't have free will, You're going to be a hard determinist. So, what do you think? Do we have free will? Yeah, Angel.
I think both determinism and free will just represent like the abstract ideas we use to define like order and chaos. Like determinism is the laws of the universe and that's order, and if you believe in that, you can assure yourself that everything has a reason.
Okay.
If you believe in free will, then that order can't be complete. And so people want to choose one or the other because they seem incompatible, but they're probably both just interwoven.
So, are you a compatibilist then? Do you think they could both be true? There's no inconsistency between them?
I think there is inconsistency, but that could be because working together, they create inconsistency because it's not one or the other, you know?
Okay. What do the rest of y'all think? Do you have free will? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, yeah.
I would say that free will really, really depends on how you're defining it. Because I feel like in compatibilism, how you wrote it there, you could be meaning something different than in your definition of pessimism.
You're right.
Because I would say, we have sort of a weighted will. You couldn't say that we completely make all decisions autonomously with no outside influence.
Yeah, okay, so what influences us?
An accumulation of our past experiences and perspectives, all sorts of things like that. The context and function of what we're doing.
Yeah? Maybe social pressures, economic pressures, institutions, what you're seeing on the news and in social media, all these things have an impact on us. You're right, though. The compatibilists and the incompatibilists are going to define free will differently. Think about compatibilism for a moment. There's no incompatibility between the universe being determined, things are going to go one way, there's no other way they can go. They're going to have a softer kind of conception of free will. They're going to say, well, what we really mean by free will is something like, there wasn't a gun to your head. You weren't coerced. Your action was voluntary. It was in line with your desires or your wishes. Is that what we mean by free will? When you use the word free will, is that what you mean? Oh, you weren't coerced. It was in line with your wishes and your desires what you did. How do you think about it? How do you conceptualize free will? Jeremy, what do you think? Does the compatibilist idea of free will, does that capture what we mean?
A little bit, but not it's hard. It could be both.
You might think one rebuttal to this view is, no, that's not what we mean by free will. Like, we have a stronger conception. You're going to lunch today. You have the option. There's mac and cheese, or maybe you're thinking something sweet and you're like, I could just pig out on bread pudding. You have the mac and cheese on your left, the bread pudding on your right. If the universe was determined, so from the beginning of time, the universe was set up in a way that you were going to choose the mac and cheese. Would you say you have a free choice there to choose what you want? To choose whether you're going to go for the mac and cheese or the bread pudding?
No,
Why not?
because it's like a decision made for you.
A decision made for you.
Basically.
Yeah, I mean, you might think, look, if I actually don't have two genuine options, if the future isn't open, if I can't choose the path I go down, I don't actually have free will. So you might, object to hard determinism and compatibilism, more specifically, and be like, look, free will means genuine options. If the universe is deterministic, nobody has a real choice about anything. What we're thinking and feeling, what we're doing, has just been determined by the laws of physics and the biochemical reactions in our brains. There's no real choice. It's a decision made for us. On the other hand, what does science tell us? Well, things seem to operate according to certain laws and regularities, right? Our brain doesn't exist outside of time, right? There are chemical reactions that are going on in there, electrical impulses that follow certain natural laws, the laws of physics. Our brain can't violate the laws of physics. So if you think free will exists, the scientific evidence doesn't seem to point in that direction. If you think what you are is just an evolved electric monkey, subject to natural physical laws, right? If everything that you do just flows from what's going on in your brain, you can't control what chemical reactions are going on in there. But yet again, life doesn't feel like that. When you're standing in the lunch line, does it feel like you actually have a choice? You have the macaroni and cheese on the left, bread pudding on your right. What does it feel like to you? Does it seem like you're being forced by your brain to make a decision? Seeing some shaking of heads. Why not? Somebody speak up. Yeah.
Or, I guess no.
What does it feel like to you when you're standing in the lunch line?
Because you could just like, choose something else. Like you could, for example, your favorite thing is mac and cheese. And basically every day you eat mac and cheese. And then this day you're like, whatever. Let me choose something else.
Yeah, it seems like, look, you can choose between the mac and cheese or the bread pudding. Nobody's holding a Glock to your head, right? You don't think of yourself as this biological machine playing out my programming, right? Yeah.
Maybe I'm playing into the choice between mac and cheese and bread pudding too much, but it's sort of like a fork in a path. You don't choose the path that you ended up on, but you see the two paths in front of you and you can choose between either one.
This is kind of how life seems to us, right? That, look, we have genuine choices when we reach these spots in the path. Were you forced to come to USF? Or did you make a free choice to come here? Weighing your options, thinking about it, thinking about your family, thinking about, the sunny Florida weather. Or were you always determined to go to USF? To date that girl, to say that thing. Yeah.
Wouldn't determinism
Say more about that.
Like, under the idea of free will, if someone chose to commit a crime, we have to hold them accountable. And then they have to pay for what they did. But if we believe in determinism, is that person really, can they be convicted of that crime, or is it just the universe?
Are they actually responsible for what they did? Would it be fair to lock them up? What do you think? Let's put it to the class. Angel?
In the book, it says something like punishing a dog for like peeing outside when that's its natural behavior. Like you can't hold someone accountable for something that they were just determined and naturally gonna do.
Annabelle?
I just had a follow-up question based on like what she said.
Yeah?
'Cause her point got me thinking, like, if it's just we read it off like, oh no, that's just, that was their fate. It was set like that. That's who they are.
Yeah.
You can't really punish them, but also like, what's the deciding factor on somebody's fate? Like, what if it was like written in the stars that they would be robbing banks? Like, what made it that way? I don't get it.
Yeah, I will. If you're religious, you might think like God has set up a destiny or path for you. If you're scientific, you might think there's only one way things can go based on how chemical reactions work and how physics work and electromagnetic fields. If you really hold to a scientific view, you might think, yeah, everything is determined. You don't have any control over what's going on in your body, the chemical reactions, the neurotransmitters in here, what you want. But people worry. If we take up a hard determinist view, maybe that implies, yeah, nobody is actually morally responsible for anything. They couldn't have done otherwise. They were fated by the laws of physics or whatever it is from the beginning to murder that child. Serial killers, they were just determined to do what they were going to do. They didn't have an actual genuine choice. And consequently, there's no moral responsibility. You might think, there's nothing fair about reward and punishment in such a universe. Why are you going to punish the serial killer for murdering 10 people if everything's been determined? He couldn't do otherwise. So all of a sudden, we have to think differently about our legal system and rewards and punishments and locking people up. But here's the rub. Our universe does seem to be kind of deterministic, right? There are laws that natural things don't break. They always follow. You might think we're just a product of nature. We're a part of that. We're in that process. So, shit. But also, would you have free will in a universe where things weren't determined? Where everything was random or by chance? Let's say physical processes. They don't have a deterministic result. It's just kind of random what comes out at the end. Could you have free will in a universe like that?
No, because you would almost still lack control in a way. Because free will, you have to almost be controlling something.
Yeah, right. It seems like in order to be responsible, what we mean by free will is something like, look, I get to determine what I do. If the universe is indeterministic and everything is chance or luck, how could free will exist in that universe? And therefore, could anybody be morally responsible in that universe? That's why the pessimistic view is kind of intuitive as well. Maybe this free will thing can't happen either way. So what do you all think? Do you have free will? You want to say something?
I was gonna say something more towards the punishment side. And
Oh, go for it.
From a deterministic point of view, I feel like we point more towards rehabilitation. If you think that everything is connected and everything that happened before is what caused this person to, say, steal from someone, I mean, with the deterministic point of view, you couldn't think that, oh, I could choose to help this person and give them that experiences to stop stealing. But I mean, it would point towards that rehabilitation aspect, that there would be steps to point towards not stealing, not hurting anyone.
Right. Then it would be like, look, what's good for society? Well, we rehabilitate people. We're not going to get retribution. That's not the point of punishment and reward. It's, getting people to do the right things, have the right thoughts, and reform so that we can all get along. There's utility in rehabilitation. You might think in a deterministic universe, though, it wouldn't make any sense, it wouldn't be fair at all to punish or reward people in the way that we think about it now. We'd have to change how we think about that, right? It wouldn't be then like, oh, well, it's fair to punish and reward people, so we're going to do that. No, it would be, well, it's not really fair. They couldn't help it, but we just kind of have to quarantine them and lock them up and get them in these programs. The philosopher Saul Smolanski, who's a hard determinist, has gone so far to argue our complete criminal justice system needs to be reformed because, again, nobody's really responsible for anything. It's not their fault. So we should actually make prisons as fun as we can. He calls this punishment. They should have Xboxes. They should be able to play Skyrim. They should be able to eat ice cream when they want. I'm seeing you shaking your head. Does that sound silly? Whether or not you think the universe is deterministic is going to be based on these views about your philosophy of mind. If you think the mind is just a physical thing, a product of chemical reactions and electrical impulses, do you really have control over what you do? But notice this as well. Hard determinism. It doesn't just imply that what you do has been determined by what happened in the past. It also implies everything you think and feel has also been determined. So what you want is determined. What you believe has been determined. If determinism is true and you believe in it, you were determined to have that belief. If determinism is true and I'm like, fuck that, I was determined not to have that belief. It's kind of an interesting consequence, right? So these questions are important, okay? What you think about determinism, free will, that's going to flow out of your metaphysics. Do you think this world is just a complex, giant, physical clockwork mechanism? Or do you think there are other non-physical things going on? Is the mind, an immaterial thing? Is there a soul? It's going to flow from your metaphysics. It's going to flow from what you think the mind is. And it's important that you think about and reflect on this stuff. Because, again, it has bearing on our criminal justice system, on why we judge people, whether we judge people, all that kind of stuff. Okay, any questions? Go bug your friends with this. Ask them, are you just a complex biological machine being determined to say what you're saying right now? It's an intuitive view. The hard determinist view is intuitive, yet the libertarian view is also intuitive. You might think compatibilism is intuitive as well.
Bro, he didn't pass it to me, bro. I was here the whole time. What the